Welcome to It's a Woman's World, a show which discusses any and all topics under the sun from a woman's point of view. Moderating today with a bouquet of wise thoughts is Junita Flowers.
Welcome to It's a Woman's World. My name is Junita Flowers, and I'm your host today. Today, we're going to talk about African American women and some of the economic disparities that a lot of African American women face in the job market. And I'm so excited to have a special guest with me today. We have Dara Beevas. And Dara Beevas is the owner and founder of Wise Inc. Is it Wise Inc. Publications?
It's Wise Inc. Creative Publishing, yes.
Awesome. And so today we're going to do something a little bit different. The two of us are going to have a little bit of a conversation as Black women to talk about maybe some of our own personal insights, but also what we see throughout our state and maybe even kind of what the national picture looks like.
Yeah.
So Dara, thank you for being here today and welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited about this topic. It's a critical topic that we should be talking about more as Black women.
It's also a different amount of synergy because both of us are entrepreneurs, and we know that's like a beast all of itself, another world all alone.
It sure is. Yeah.
So maybe even taking kind of that concept as two African American women that own our own businesses, being an entrepreneur can really supplement and add to the quality of life financially for women in general, but especially for African American women. And we're finding that a lot of times African American women are usually on the bottom rung when it comes to how much we're being paid as it relates to our coworkers and counterparts.
Absolutely.
The types of jobs or promotions that we are up for or offered.
Absolutely. We're not on boards. I think there's one Black woman on a board of a Fortune 500 company. One.
And what year is this?
2016, almost 17, right?
Right.
Exactly.
And people don't want to talk about the topic because they feel like race doesn't matter, but it does. And have you noticed any types of trends or statistics that you've heard about that are negatively impacting African American women still in 2016?
Well, absolutely. I think that Black women are still in that spot in corporate America, especially. Even when we're talking about the Black woman who was blessed enough to have an advanced degree or an undergraduate degree, who has a position at a corporation that should be willing and accepting of Black women. And I'm hearing still that it's very, very hard to get promoted. We are still, I think Black women, are leading with single parenting. Our median income is still not where our other counterparts are. White families, even Hispanic families, are statistically doing better. And so I think that, I'm hearing that the struggle is still real for us. I happen to have friends who are undereducated and overeducated, and you find that still some of the problems are similar for both parties. Women with advanced degrees, with good jobs, and women who weren't fortunate enough to go to college, who are still in the same boat, not able to break through, not able to bring in enough income to support their families.
Yeah, it is troubling, and I think even just going from personal experiences growing up in Minnesota, and Minnesota is a well-known state nationally for the quality of education that you can receive here.
Yeah.
But I think one of the pieces that people fail to realize or account for is the lack of African American women in leadership in our schools. I know for me,
absolutely.
my parents were very much involved in my education. They were very supportive. But kind of when you're going through that teenage years and then, post high school into college, where you're trying to figure out how do I fit in the world? Who am I outside of my family? I wanted to find or see other African American women that were teaching the classes, that were representing many different professions.
Yep.
Because when you see people that look like you, we may not want to think about it still an issue today, but sometimes when you see someone that looks like you in a particular position,
Absolutely.
all of a sudden, you know what, I can reach for that. It's something that people like me do.
It's so funny you say that. My husband is Jamaican, so he has a completely different Black experience than I have. And one of the things he said early in our relationship that just made an impact was that he always wanted a Volvo because there was a doctor on his block who drove a Volvo, and that doctor looked like him, and so he said, successful men drive Volvos.
That's amazing.
Now imagine if you were a young black child growing up and you thought, well, you know, teachers are all white, so I can't be a teacher. Or all doctors are white, so I guess I can't be a doctor. The reverse works too. So you're absolutely right. If more black women, and Wise Inc. has had amazing success with being out in the community, part of what I wanted to show, especially Minnesota, was I want black girls to know that they can be a writer, that they can be an author. You can write books. You can make books, because I didn't know what a publisher was until I was 20 years old. I didn't understand what a publisher was, and then I went to college and was fortunate enough to have some friends who said, what if we all made a magazine and we published our own voices in this magazine? And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool, and that's how I became a publisher. But had I seen a black woman, or just even a woman who had her own publishing company as a young woman, that could have changed my entire life a lot earlier.
Right, and I think even celebrating some of the successes or wins that African American women have had nationally, you know, we've sort of seen African American women that have started businesses and they've been acquired by larger organizations or companies, so that's a huge accomplishment. Or they've started it and they've grown it to be a very competitive, you know, high-ranking, high-dollar value company. We didn't see that growing up, or we didn't hear about it. And really, for us, I know for me growing up, the magazine that I usually was drawn to was Ebony or Jet or Essence. You know, and so you did see some, but beyond that, if I went to some of the other magazines, I just grew accustomed to, I wouldn't see stories of celebration about women that look like me in those magazines. But now I think it looks a little bit different for my daughter, as she's seeing more and more, and maybe because I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm shoving it down her throat.
And that actually makes more impact, I think, her being able to see you.
You know, and you don't always realize it, I think, when you're in the throes, in the trenches of parenting, but every now and then, like on this last Mother's Day, my daughter had written a card and she's like, Mom, you inspire me. You know, it's like, that's not something I hear every day. But, you know, you do realize they're watching everything that we do. And I think more and more African American women are taking the risk and starting something on their own, either because
I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that. I probably bump into a woman a week of color who says, I have an idea. And I tend to think if you decide you want to write a book, that's also starting your own business, because it's its own venture in and of itself. But not just I want to write a book, but I want to start a blog, or I want to start my own catering business, or I want to open up a store, or I want to start my own consulting business. I mean, I think that that is so key for black women. We have not just the strength and the fortitude and the tenacity to be entrepreneurs and to take our own economic futures into our own hands, but we are carrying within us brilliance that can be monetized. So I'm all about using entrepreneurship as that vehicle to further our circumstances. We cannot depend on our governments or our communities to do it. We have to do it for ourselves.
You know, and the reality is reality. So if you're a single parent, you know, raising children, or if, you know, you've been working at a company and you've been overlooked for promotion several times, whatever that obstacle is reality is reality. It may not be fair, it may be hard, but there is something you can do. And I think entrepreneurialism is a awesome way to be able to increase your wealth opportunities. And not only that, I mean, because you have women that may decide, you know, I'm gonna just do something part-time on the weekend, still keep my full-time job, but it's a release or an outlet that taps into my creativity or something I'm passionate about, and it brings in a little bit of money, you know, maybe it's my coffee money or, you know, whatever. But it starts there. And then once they kind of get a taste of it, you know, you see a lot of women, wow, there's something to this, and then they
love the whole like starting while you work.
Starting
something while you work. I've seen it work over and over and over again. I launched Wise Inc. while I was working for another job, and it started for me with a blog, but I've seen other women working their evenings or their weekends. Even something like direct marketing, doing Mary Kay, or doing doing Pampered Chef or Tupperware, something that is a creative outlet for you that you can do in your downtime. Now, time is not always flowing, but I think if you love it, and if you can just do something an hour an evening. I have a friend who is doing this amazing, sort of like you are, Junita. She has, she's doing like a faux packaging, and so like where you would go into Whole Foods and be able to buy all the ingredients for faux and make it at home. And so she works a full-time job. She's an executive, and in her downtime, she's packaging the noodles and putting the labels on her broth and making calls and going to conferences in her downtime. And she's got 2 kids, and her life is really busy. But if you're passionate about it, I think you can make it work.
And I think if you start to poll many entrepreneurs, especially women, and then even women of color, you will find that they didn't have the luxury, or they didn't want to take that huge of a risk to quit their full-time job. They just kind of started where they are. I have this idea, I have this passion, or I see there's a gap in the marketplace that it's impacting my life, and it would add value for me, so clearly it probably would add value for others as well, and then they launch something. I think one of the things that maybe, and we could talk about some of the things that we think can help African American women as they're trying to stabilize their economic future, one of the things I think is important is the network. Like a lot of times, especially in Minnesota, you can feel like you're an island unto yourself. And if you're not networking, you know, your resources are only as great as the people you're in connection with. So you can often feel isolated. You can feel like it's impossible. What are some things that you think may be valuable for women as they're trying to stabilize their economic future?
Well, I got a lot of help from Women Venture, and as a Black woman, they really nurtured my dream. So I credit that, and the Small Business Administration here in Minnesota is incredible. And again, I do believe that Minnesota is sensitive to wanting to help not just Black women, but Black families. And so I think that the SBA is great, Women Venture is great, but my church was wonderful. And I feel like my sister friends were so supportive. I don't want to choke up, but my good friend Jasmine Stringer, as soon as I launched my business, was first in line to say, you know what, I'm going to publish my book with you, Dara. And I think that one thing Black women have to do is ask for help, which is something that my family, the Black women in my own family, have not been great at asking for help. My mother was a single parent, and we were one of those families very, very much positioned to not. My brother and sister and I were the first in our family to go to college. So, you know, I think that that happened because my mom definitely paid attention to our education, and I think that was the way we were able to become more successful. But I wish she had asked for help a lot more. I wish that her own relatives and her friends knew when she needed a helping hand. And so I think as you're trying to figure out entrepreneurship and how to make a way out of no way, as they say, for your family, ask for help. You have to. I mean, when you're single parenting, especially, you need help. You cannot mother 3 children on your own without saying, can I do this, and can you sit with these kids, because I got to go do this.
Right. And as a single mom myself, as an entrepreneur, with, you know, I have young children, there's a certain amount of vulnerability when you reach out for help, because you've opened the door. It could be possible rejection. You're reminded of some of the deficiencies that you're experiencing. It doesn't make it bad or good, but we know we're always struggling wherever we feel like there's a deficit. So when you ask for help, you're reminded, oh, this is a hole. Yes. And so that can be humbling sometimes, or it could just be, you know, just another load that you may take on. But, you know, as someone who realizes either it's sink or swim, and if I don't ask for help, I sink. So if I'm okay with sinking, then I won't ask.
Well, I love your story, Junita, that you shared about how you had that partnership happen with the U.
Right.
And you took that risk to just say, what if we did this? And it opened a door for you.
Right. And I think that's the thing. A lot of times when you talk about passion, and really passion leads to entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship leads to economic stability, a lot of times it's already in us. We've heard it.
I didn't know it was in me. Did you know it was in you?
Yes.
You did
Yes,
know.
yes.
Okay.
And
That's
even,
awesome.
but no, I think, but see, you were already in the industry, so it was in you.
I didn't
Maybe
know it
where it
was.
was going,
Yeah.
you didn't have clarity, because I don't think we ever have
Yeah.
100% clarity on where our path will take us, because if we did, we
Entrepreneurship
quit.
is scary.
It is.
And it's scary even if you have a job that is paying your bills. It's scary to think, never mind, I want to do this other thing. I'm going to say goodbye to my stability and do this thing that could be a big risk. So,
Right.
So for me, I thought, heck no, I'm not ever going to have a business because that is too many things I don't know and could fail.
Right. I mean, there's a whole lot of what ifs in that particular
Right.
scenario. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's one thing to be working at your, current employer, and you submit a proposal for that new project, and they say, you know what, we're not going to do that right now, but you still have a paycheck.
Yeah.
But if you're working for yourself, and
Exactly.
you're getting multiple no's, well, there's a little bit more at risk because you have to be able to
Absolutely.
eat.
Yeah.
So there are definitely a lot of risks involved with launching onto your own, but that's in everything.
That's right.
And so I think a lot of
So glad
times
you said that.
piece is in us.
Yeah.
And I think every time we take kind of that little step, it sharpens it.
Yeah.
Which then that it is that which guides us and leads us kind of down that
Absolutely.
path. And I think ultimately, as we're trying to stabilize our economic future, and even beyond stabilizing like my own personal, we want to leave a financial legacy for our
Legacy.
children and our children's children. And that's something
Yeah.
that used to happen in the African American community.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the way, it weakened.
Yeah.
And so I think we're at a time in our history where we can really rewrite that script,
Yep.
because we do have more and more women, African American
Yep.
women, that are launching out into their own businesses. I think we have.
We're willing to take the chance.
Yes, even with
Yeah.
youth entrepreneurship. So,
Oh,
yes,
so
you
cool.
start, after college, but we have 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. What about Be Sweet Lemonade
I
from
love
Shark
it.
Tank? Yes. She
So
was 10 years
cool.
old, little 10-year-old African American
I
girl.
love that
Yes.
story.
It's because she had
Yeah.
this passion for bees,
Yep.
but her parents were able to see that
And
gift
nurture
in
it
her.
within
Yes.
her. That
Not
is
their
so
dream.
key.
Yes, they nurtured
So
hers.
key.
Yes.
And don't you kind of think that with young Black kids, to be able to nurture that within them early, because so
Yes.
often in the Black community, I mean, I don't know if you experienced it, but I had a teacher tell me in the 6th grade, it was Miss Dillon, who said, Dara, why are you asking me about writing? This is not something that you are gonna do. This is not who you are meant to be. So if you see these Black kids earlier in life talking about code, talking about how they want to own a business, or they want to be a fashion designer, or they want to do anything, if you can nurture that from then, because they're going to be told no so many times,
Right.
so many more times
Right.
than their white counterparts.
Right, and I think as parents, I think about my own personal role. My job is not to raise these children that I'm just so proud of, although you hope that's the goal.
Yeah.
My job is to raise these human beings that I brought into this world
Yeah.
to be positive, contributing
Absolutely.
adults to society.
Yeah.
And that I put them on a path where they can live the best life that they
Yeah.
were created to live for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
part of that requires me to watch them and to
Yeah.
see things that they're sort of taking an interest in, or
Yeah.
that they have, sort of a skill at
Yeah.
that they can't
Yep.
communicate maybe,
Yep.
or they want to shy away from because they don't feel very confident about it. But then I need to take that little thing I see and expose them to it, get them in some training classes, put them in our local community center that offers something to nurture that.
Absolutely.
Then we'll have
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, kids that are willing to step out and risk
Yeah.
something. At 16, I mean, back in the day, you
Yeah.
had when we were in college, people doing hair, on the weekends. It was a little side gig, but it was a way
I
to,
wish there was somebody at my school who could do
right.
that.
I went to the University of Minnesota. We didn't have as much, but I've heard,
Yes,
my
yes.
sister's school, they did
My
have.
aunt went to Howard.
Yep.
It was like every other dorm room.
Yes,
you
my
could get
sister went to
their hair
Wilberforce.
done.
Yes. So yes, but I mean that was another way for them to supplement their
Yeah.
income, and for some of them, I'm
Yes.
sure they own salons today.
Yeah.
But it was something where they found out when they were 12, and they were the one that everybody came to their house to get their hair braided. And then they were able to take that once they got to college to make a little extra money. And then if they decided to, you know, do that as their own business, they could do that, or if they decided to own their own salon. But it starts young. And if that's nurtured, we're always going to have that voice in our head that's going to tell us you can't do it. You're not good enough. You have this obstacle.
And if you don't have examples around you of people who are doing it and have done it successfully, then that's yet another barrier to your ability to see that you can do it.
Yes. I'm feeling really good about the opportunities that if I continue to pour into my daughter, and other women are pouring into their daughters, and the community is also investing, because I think once we set the standard, the others are going to have to follow.
I agree.
Or it's going to be an uprising.
I agree.
I mean, seriously, I mean, I think if we can continue to really pour into our children, the reality, you can be a writer at 12.
Yes.
You can own your own lemonade company.
Author at 12.
Yes. Anything. I mean, because
absolutely,
kids are doing it every day, and a lot of times
and they have that like twinkle of, they haven't been, you know, their dreams haven't been tainted.
Right. And I think
doubt from other people.
And even if it's not that they become this entrepreneur, you know, a career entrepreneur, it's still, there's something about taking an idea when you're a child and developing that into something. There's something that it does to your self-esteem. It does something that you think, wow, I could do this. And if you don't choose to become an entrepreneur, that still carries over into whatever you choose to do.
You can have an entrepreneurial mindset when you work for another person too.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like our staff at YThink is incredibly entrepreneurial. But I heard a statistic recently that I thought was really interesting, and it was that non-Americans are more likely to be an entrepreneur than Americans. And the statistic also said that if you are an entrepreneur, you are more likely to become a millionaire. Like your likelihood of becoming a millionaire increases exponentially if you become an entrepreneur. And just that, reading that alone, I thought, wow, why aren't more people working for themselves? Why aren't more people stepping out there? And I think that there is going to be, I think we're going to see a lot more women, Black women, taking that chance and doing more for themselves so that they can control their own destinies and their own futures, and not just for themselves but for their kids.
And I think with entrepreneurialism, and yes, it's hard, and there's a struggle, and there are lean times, and there's times of plenty, and there's rejection, and there's, you know, self-doubt, like all those things that you will see in any other area of life. But the ability to create and establish on your own terms what your financial stability will be, what your financial security is, it's really safe to be able to go through that entrepreneurial route, because it doesn't require that you have to have a certain skill set per se, because you can be an entrepreneur in any particular field. Where, you know, if my background is in therapy, I may have a hard time, you know, trying to climb the ladder in, you know, computer technology.
Absolutely.
You know, so then there's some automatic walls that are set. But if you're an entrepreneurial minded person, you can take what you already know, create some sort of business or service, and then grow your business out, and then hire whatever other skill sets you need. But you've now created an opportunity where the sky is the limit. You still have to work hard. You have to work hard like you would at, you know, the job where you're, you know, clocking in. And it's not for everyone. But if you're trying to figure out, how do I take ownership of my future, and I don't have the money, time, or resources to invest in going back to school, or I don't have the time, money, resources, or I don't even have the will to be able to study this or that, go start where you are.
I love that. Start where you are. That's a great. You don't have. I love the advice I got when I started my business, which was build the plane while you fly it.
That's good.
And I have been doing that. You know, we started with no money. I didn't get a loan. I didn't, you know, tap any savings, and it's worked. It's worked. And one thing about entrepreneurship is that it just kind of morphs into its own machine, especially if you are able just to have your passion and you've asked for help, and you start where you are. Things really do fall into place more than what you think. Because if you're like me, you might be just terrified. And I just was so, you know, oh my God, they're going to repossess my car, my house, everything is going to be gone. And it turned into, I did not need to be afraid.
And I think a sign of the fear that comes with some of those thoughts and questions is someone that's having their due diligence.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to just step into it blindly. Oh, if I step out, do my own business, it's going to be perfect. I'll be a millionaire in 6 months. After that, I'll hire on 20 new people.
You do need the balance.
Right. So it's, you know, having those fears,
Yeah.
and if people can recognize that those
Yeah.
fears are a normal part of starting your own business,
You're right.
maybe we'll be able to have more people launch out or give it
Yeah.
more thought or take it more
Yeah.
seriously
Yeah.
and tap into some of the networks or support systems that exist, especially in Minnesota,
Yeah.
that can get them started and on their way.
Yeah.
Our time has just
Yeah.
flown.
I know. It's a
been
great
great. I
conversation.
know,
This
something that
is-
both of us are passionate about, especially as
Oh,
entrepreneurs.
absolutely.
But thank you so much for
Thank
being here today.
you.
You know, kind of what I'm going to do, and we'll just transition a little bit. One of the things as an entrepreneur that I'm working on and trying to be better at is just inspiring people to step out and try something different. So I just want to share something with our viewing audience and just take a couple moments. And I want to start with a quote, and that quote is, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step." And for me, that quote represents our willingness to start right where we are, to set a goal, and proceed by taking one step on a consistent basis until we reach our intended destination. And I think life is just a journey, a series of steps that we're learning and figuring out along the way. And I like to attribute it or kind of relate it to a marathon. And when you think about a marathon, there is that set goal, that goal of success, that once you get there, you will have been able to say, I ran a marathon. But you don't start there. Everybody has to start at mile 1, but before you get to mile 1, you start with a training plan. And that's really what life is. And I think when you're thinking about whether it's your career, whether you're starting your own business, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a homeschooling parent, whatever area of life is your specialty, you have to start where you are. And I think once you start where you are, you're able to refine, clarify what your passion is. If we're waiting for that huge epiphany to come about, we'll be waiting until, I don't know, maybe until we die. You know, they say the greatest potential is in the graveyard, and that's because so many people have been fearful. And they decided, I'm not going to step out on the greatness that I have within me because it's scary. Because they spend more time and energy on the what ifs, and the what ifs being the things that could cause them to fail, as opposed to looking at the what ifs as a launching pad. I'd be remiss to say that entrepreneurs start out and they become successful and they feel good about every decision that they make, because most entrepreneurs will doubt that decision along every step. Mile marker 1, mile marker 5, mile marker 18. Sometimes you have those little pieces in there because you had a successful quarter, you had great feedback from your customers, maybe you took a new training and development class that made you feel more confident, but there's always going to be things that come along your path to make you say, why did I do it? Maybe I should quit now. My message to you is, don't quit. Focus on the step where you are right now. That's it. When I trained for my marathon, and I'm not a runner, let me make that clear, I'm not a runner, but if I focused on the 26.2 mile destination, guess what? I would have never got up off the couch because I can't. Who runs for 26 miles, much less who runs for 5 hours? Like, who does that? So I had to start right where I was. And the beautiful thing about the entrepreneurial journey, it looks different for each of us, and I get to tailor it for me. So if you start where you are, believe in who you are, and just allow the passion to fuel that, you will be successful, you will feel fulfilled. So I hope you enjoyed our show today. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm grateful for our guest, Dara Beevas.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on It's a Woman's World. We'll see you next time.